So here's part 2 of my creative process log. The stuff that I've been doing recently, one thing that is kind of a method that has been kind of consistent. Well, no, technically not consistent. A method that has appeared a few times across different medium has been the idea that to build towards the final product using layers. So I think the tendency I have when approaching stuff in general, whatever kind of creation it is, whether for like school work, or like creative stuff like painting or making videos or whatever, is that I tend to start with an idea of what I want as the end product. And with that as kind of like the mentally finalized and locked in version, and I just keep going towards that. And it's something that I realized as early on as like architecture school, which would put that at about 10 years ago. I mean, my tutors pointed it out a few times, and with sufficient instances and observation, I think what they say does have truth to it, in that I do tend to start with an end in mind, and I don't like to deviate very far from what that could be, which kind of sucks because there are like this method works if you have sufficient experience or area of expertise in whatever it is you're doing. You've done it enough times, or you have seen it done enough times, or whatever it is, to know that it works out like that. And then because you have that kind of finalized end goal in mind, you can then go and break down the steps that will take you towards it, right? And so it's like it's nice for tracking, it's nice for things in the system, but it's not so nice when you don't know where you are going. And I think that's the problem sometimes, that like there's a lot of places that we'll need to go in life where we don't know what the end goal looks like until we actually reach it. And the only way you can get there is just like step by step by step. Like you just move a bit, stand there, figure out what that area is, decide what's the next best possible step, and then do the next step and the next step and the next step, all like this until you get to the end. And I think if you go with a process like this, you can't really envision what the end necessarily looks like, because there's so many possible twists and turns in all the steps in between. And so I got distracted. There's like there's a car honking. I don't know who is their passenger or whatever, but yeah, anyway. I'm near like a pickup drop off point of an area, I guess. No clue. There's someone running, so hopefully that's the car. Gone soon. Yes, okay. So where was I? So layers. So back to what I've been doing recently. I painted a bunch of stuff in my daily sketchbook. What I've observed is that generally when I paint, whether using watercolor or acrylic, I like to paint in. I just want it to be done in a single sitting, so I kind of paint in what sort of amounts to a single layer. So whatever I want to paint, I just imagine like the whole piece of paper, each area of the paper is basically laid over with maybe one at most two colors. Like the brush maybe goes over it like twice at most, probably once. Um, and that's how I painted for a bit in my daily sketchbook. And I was just trying to observe this without giving too much judgment to it. And then in the more recent pages, especially I think it started when I painted the house on fire, which I think it's this side. Which no, I think should be this side. Which I'll link. It's kind of like a stream of conscious painting in that I just picked whatever colors felt relevant and then I painted whatever my hand guided me to. And it so happens that it's a house. And then that sparked other thoughts, which then led to the poem, which then led to me making that short video. But that particular painting, I think because I was doing it free form, I had a bunch of colors already squeezed out, so I just painted. And then as I painted, I still had colors left over, so I was like, I've already squeezed it out, I can't put them back in the tube. I'm just gonna use it. So I layered more colors onto the page that already had colors. And I quite enjoyed the results. There's a bunch of like orangey reds over greens, over browns. I can't really remember, but like there's a few, and then like there are some spots where because I keep going over with the brush, that actually ended up taking color off instead of adding color on. And then that sort of created that weird like fiery effect, which I then amplified by painting more stuff over it. And I think that was the start of this idea of like layering stuff. And for that particular one, I kind of just did it intuitively, like without thinking too much, because that was like the words on it and all that stuff that came afterwards. I really just sat down and paint. And the next thing that I did, I think chronologically, would be a doll video. It's a doll ASMR video. I have done like lo-fi ASMR videos with my dolls previously, but the videos in the past were the audio and the visuals footage, like the visual footage, were recorded at the same time. So it's kind of like in real time things are happening. But this time I wanted to do it a bit differently. I had an idea for what the visuals would look like, and then having done the whole like record the video and audio at the same time thing before, I know it's quite difficult to get good audio. Just because like when you live in a flat with other people, there's gonna be sounds all the time. So sometimes you get like good visuals, but then your audio kind of sucks, and then you have to cut that part out. So to kind of avoid that, I decided to do the visual footage and the audio separately. So I took videos first, kind of like got the flow of it, and then I recorded audio separately over that. And I think that sort of worked out better. And it was again another one of those like, I decided to just give myself permission to just do whatever seems necessary or seems right in the moment. And so my idea was I was going to do a doll ASMR video which used different wigs. And there's a reason why I use different wigs, because like, I mean, it's not relevant to this talk about layers, but basically this particular doll had like an older iteration where he had more like emo hair, and then a newer iteration where he has more like normal looking hair. And I just wanted to show all of his hairstyles in one video, make use of all the wigs that I have for him, because I think like seeing him as any one particular iteration is not truthful of the evolution of that character. So I mean, video is the best medium to show this kind of stuff. You can technically kind of do it with a series of photos, but I feel like video is good to show time change. So that was why that was the visual. And then it being an ASMR video got me thinking about how there's all this barbershop roleplay videos, which is what I ended up using as the vehicle. And then for audio, I know that it's gonna be kind of bland if it's just one layer, so I started with a base audio layer that is just like background sounds. So like background sounds of the fan, of hair drying. It ended up being quite muted in the end, like it's just a background sound that you can't quite distinguish what it is in the end. But I like the idea of, so like all of this came kind of separately, like over a period of time. I made a video, then I was like, okay. Then like later in the evening I took a shower, then I was like, what if I make a bass background audio clip so that I don't have to worry about like gaps in the actual close-up sounds that you want of like the hairdresser roleplay thing. And it ended up working out well, because I think the bass audio kind of hides the parts where the other clips start and end. So it kind of hides the gaps in audio. And it also makes it so that the background noise it's not so obvious that the background noise doesn't sound the same across the different clips, because I had to kind of like re-record a few beats, because like I said, there's a lot of background sounds at home when you try and record stuff. So anyway, my point to this is, I think that video, like, okay, how do I put this? I don't think the video is like fantastic, but I was very proud of myself when I finished that particular video. And I think it's a few things. I think one is that I very rarely, if not almost never, allow myself to make things without knowing exactly how the end product will look like, and therefore every single step along the way. Because if you don't know what the end looks like, how can you break it down into every single step? And then therefore how can you sort of track that you're doing things on time to meet the target? So for that particular video, I was just like, if it's gonna take a while, it's gonna take a while. I'll give it time to take a while. And that includes the time for the actual doing, like whether filming the video, filming the audio, etc. But also all the time in between where I didn't actively work on the project, but I had time to kind of just sit in the spaces in between. And things like the shower thought of like, why don't you do a kind of background audio to kind of hide the sound gaps came up. And in fact, actually, I think the background audio thing came about from me watching people paint. So I think I watched a few people paint, I think acrylic or oil paintings, and a lot of them do underpaintings. Sometimes the underpainting doesn't even start with any sketch of any sort. It's literally just one color laid down, so that it feels less intimidating to start when your canvas already has something versus when it's completely blank. Like there being something on the canvas gives you something to respond to, no matter how small it is. Because even if you try and do like a flat wash with one color, when you physically paint that medium, it's not gonna be like 100% like even throughout. And I think that's like all those slight differences where it's not even are kind of like, I don't know, footholds, things for you to hold on to kind of pull yourself into the next layer, if that makes sense. So I think that's where the idea of that background audio bit came from, and I'm glad it sort of translated that way, because I think it made making that video a more fun process. And here I'm really trying to talk about the process and less about the end product. The idea of layers as like building bit by bit by bit. Like you do something and then it gives you material on the thing that you're working on that allows you to have something to respond to, and it's not just like plain imagination, blank canvas, empty the whole way. And I'm not saying that imagination is empty, but I think there is something different between having an idea of what it is like in your head versus actually seeing something down, put down on a physical thing. Even though that physical thing might be, you know, like a digital video, it's still physical in that it exists outside here and not just within my mind, where I can't pull out something from my mind to show you, but I can show you something that I've been working on my computer. So that's what I mean by physical. And so I think after that video, I painted a few more pages of my daily sketchbook, and some of them I layered stuff. I think the one that I remember the most is the page that is basically my yes page. I made a no page quite a bit back. And I finally got around. Well, no, technically got around is the wrong phrase. I finally had the inspiration on what my yes would look like. Anyway, so on that page, it is a base of brown with greens over it, and it actually starts off with the back of a lottery ticket. And the thing that caught my eye about the lottery ticket is really the part where it says like, don't wet it, don't hit it. Bunch of stuff about like, you know, take care of this, how you should take care of this ticket so that it doesn't disappear with your potentially winning lottery numbers. And so I wanted to do things that were against whatever it was saying. And somehow that page ended up being the page that was sort of like a yes page. Does that make sense? I feel like that doesn't really make sense. Yeah, never mind. I'm not gonna talk about the no page and the yes page. Maybe I'll do it another time. But like, so I went back to painting and layers, right? And then I think the thing that I'm currently working on, in the midst of working on, is a second door ASMR video where I'm kind of stuck. Technically not stuck, but I got annoyed at some point because a lot of the audio clips were like, I have to redo them. I haven't redone them. Like they either sounded bad, like I maybe knocked the mic, or there was like a lot of background sounds that I just couldn't edit away. And then there's still other parts that I need to add in, like the dialogue. But I thought it was interesting because this video is kind of an additional layer from the previous video. because the first one was just like a barbershop hairdressing role play thing, and then this one has an additional layer of having a bit more of my doll's backstories woven into it. So it's kind of like a bit like a photo story, but it's a video. And at the same time, in the middle, there's an ASMR part. Again, I don't know whether the video is any good. I am not gonna be too hung up about that. I think I'm trying to remind myself that that's not the point, and instead to just make the thing. And so another thing with the layer is I tried doing the same thing that worked the first time, right? Take the video separately, do a bass audio for the ASMR, and then do like a proper audio track for the sounds that you actually want to hear that is being shown on screen. And then now I'm at a bit where I will need to redo some of the in-between audio and redo some of the, not redo, and write some of the dialogue that I haven't gotten to. And then only after I write those dialogue can I record additional audio, etc, etc. I was doing this 2 days ago, and I could feel myself getting very fired up into it, and it's a feeling that I recognize because I was pretty much in that state the whole of Aki and also kind of the whole time that I was working, which is that like when I start a project, I feel like I have to see it to the end, and I feel like I cannot take a single break until it's finished, which doesn't work in the real world anyway, because once you're finished with something, something else comes at you. And actually even in school it technically didn't work, but I just couldn't really let it go back when I was in school. Some of my friends could, and I tried to do it like they did, but it just made me anxious, and so I went back a lot of times to just like putting in even more work in whatever I was doing so that I can kind of complete it faster instead of like resting in between, which was probably the more reasonable option, but it felt bad, so I didn't do it. And so 2 days ago, when I was in the midst of this whole like, oh no, I need to re-record some of this audio, and it feels like the goalpost for when it's gonna end, like when this project will be finished, feels like it's shifted further, and then now the project feels more unmanageable, etc. And then I was just like, I could feel that I was getting very fired up, and the thing that I would have done in the past is to push through, to just continue doing everything that I told you just now until I finish the project. And having done it many times before in other stuff, I know that the end result that happens when I push through that way is not something that I'll be super satisfied with. It would be it's finally done, but even that relief would be very, very short-lived. And I know because I've done it so many times, I know I will be relieved, but the relief will be so short that it's not even satisfying. And so I did what is for me quite a difficult thing to do, which is to step back from the project for a while. So yesterday I didn't touch it at all. I made granola instead. I did other stuff basically. I watched some Leverage, and today I came out to film, which means the ASMR video is getting further delayed. But I feel like it is the thing that feels more uncomfortable for me to do, but it is probably the right thing for me to do right now. And that's so difficult. But in a way, it's all built upon stuff that I've done before. I don't know. I'm kind of losing the thread on layers at this point. But like I feel like that's just what I've been doing lately. On the actual like making I don't know, videos, paintings, whatever you wanna call it. side of things, I feel like layers is the keyword. That's not keyword necessarily, but kind of the emerging theme that has came out, sieved itself out from the bunch of stuff that I've been doing. But in terms of like my own approach to how I'm taking this creative process, I think layers is just a method, and the thing that is really more important is me knowing myself, me knowing my tendency to kind of just want to like quickly get rid of the hot potato and like finish the project, call it done, even though it won't be as good as it could have been. And then it would just be like I just want to get it done, and really trying to give myself practice at taking breaks and taking breaks without feeling bad about it, which is also quite difficult. Like my first fun employment year, when I first stopped working, I was technically on a break, but I felt bad for so much of it, like at least half a year. I didn't even know how bad I was feeling. But when I realized it, I realized that that whole half a year that I was resting, I felt guilty about having that chance to rest, which is quite ridiculous. But also like then I felt bad for feeling bad that I wasn't making better use of my fun employment time, which doesn't help. Anyway, I feel like I'm not very good at talking today, but this is just an update on the creative process. I feel like I'm gonna try to do updates on this, and I don't think any of it would be particularly narratively directional, and I think that's probably fine because that's what a log is anyway. It's just a record of what's been happening. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to do that. We'll see. Yeah, so that's the update on my creative process. And generally speaking, anything that I've done, I've tried to publish them on whatever means I can. So like videos go up on YouTube or like Instagram or whatever. Writing go up on, if it's a fanfic, AO3. If it's a poem, I've been putting them on shorts. Like I've just been trying to let this finish things go out and live on their own away from me, just so I can just be like I'm not just holding on to all of them. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm doing at the moment. But I feel like it's the whole thing about trusting that I don't know what the end result will look like, but every step of the way, if I just wherever I land, take stock of the surroundings, gather my thoughts, and then figure out the next step, I'll be fine, I think. Yeah. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I think the point that I was trying to make, which I don't know whether I said explicitly in the video, was that you as in me I don't have to do everything at once. I can kind of do it layer by layer. Like every time I just need to kind of solve the issue per layer and then let it stack up and see what emerges out of it. And doing things this way kind of takes that pressure off to be like, I need to know what the big picture is, or I need to know what all the layers stacked together would look like afterwards. And I think that's like something that I find difficult to do, but it helps a lot because otherwise things just feel very overwhelming. The other thing is, I think doing things this way kind of gives me a certain potential for joy, in that there is a chance to be surprised. Like, whenever I'm working on each particular layer of any project, I'm only looking at like one aspect of something. But when you add it on, it kind of creates something else, and that something else has a certain magic about it, in that it is born out of what I've done, yes, but it is not something that I've done consciously. And so the conscious part of my mind gets to be surprised and delighted by, or maybe devastated, whichever, by whatever emerges. And I think that's interesting, interesting to say the least, because it reveals something about myself that I don't consciously know. Yeah.